Oh, yeah, get hyped. It is another edition of Here Come the Irish, season number, what is this, Ryan Harris? 47 for us? How long
I
have we
think
done
it's
this?
47, approximately,
Is it
yes.
really? Okay, good. It's good to see you again. Good to hear from you. Good to have another season upon us. For those of you who are not familiar with the show, this show is for Notre Dame Giving Society members and alumni who want interest and want to exchange their thoughts on the upcoming game. It's going to broadcast Thursdays at 12:11 p.m. We'll have former Notre Dame legends on the show all year. We'll also preview the upcoming game, break down the offense, the defense, hear from the coaches. We've got a little bit of everything. But before we get to all of that, how was your off season, Ryan?
It was fantastic, Vic. Got to see my sister get married, bring the kids back to St. Paul, Minnesota, and then also got to go to Farmer City, Illinois, where my wife's family celebrated my wife's grandmother's 90th birthday. So a ton of time with family, a ton of time with kids. So I am ready for football. How about you,
Good for
Vic?
you. I spent last week, I was in Chicago for American Cancer Society golf tournament. And every time I go back to Chicago, I have to remind myself how many Notre Domers live in the Chicago area. I mean, there were Domers everywhere.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I really enjoyed catching up with them. Good people, a lot of them my old classmates over there. So that's as close to campus as I've gotten in recent months. Hope to get back, obviously, for a game this year. But let's talk about the game, and let's talk about the challenges ahead. First of all, a very tumultuous offseason, I guess you would call it, when you have a coaching change. Marcus Freeman took over the reins, and man, did he clean up in recruiting or what?
He absolutely has, getting not only one of the best classes in Notre Dame history for recruiting, but also flipping future recruits from future opponents. And Marcus Freeman's done not only that behind the scenes, but how about that video where they're in Vegas with Michael Mayer and Isaiah Foskey? I mean, Marcus Freeman is also recruiting the players on his team with the new transfer portal rules. He's making sure guys are included in every aspect of the success of the program. And it's been fun to watch because I know from being a player, you want to have a bigger role, not only in what you can accomplish on the field, but in making sure the legacy and tradition of Notre Dame's excellence continues.
And he's bringing back one of those traditions. Game day mass at the Basilica is one of them. It's just cool that, listen, this is the future, obviously. He represents the future, but it's okay to dip into the past, man. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think you make friends everywhere when you dip into Notre Dame's past, Ryan.
Well, and it was one of my favorite things playing at Notre Dame, doing the walk, the lone games that my grandmothers who are now passed were able to see. I hugged them both on that walk on the way to the stadium. It's fun to walk through and just feel the campus, feel that game day vibe too. Because Vic, so many times you arrive in a bus that gets shuttled right into the stadium. You don't even see actual human beings outside of your team until after the game or on the field of play. So it's always great, too, for players. And I remember being a recruit, going on the walk, and I was like, man, this is crazy. Notre Dame fans love the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And so not only do you help the players on the roster understand the tradition of Notre Dame, but you help the future recruits who are going to be bringing up the tail end there of the procession as it gets to the stadium.
What do you think about Coach Freeman's staff? Al Golden comes in and works now as defensive coordinator, which is what Freeman did last year.
Well, I think that's going to be the biggest pickup of this offseason. Al Golden, not only does he come with head coaching experience in his career previously, but he also just lost the Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals, in which those Bengals got 6 turnovers on defense throughout the playoffs. Al Golden understands, and he and I talked before the spring game and production meetings, he understands so much more about coaching now because of his time in the NFL. Plus, you know this as well as I do, Vic, the NFL is one big office building without a lot of chairs. So now if you're a defensive player like a DJ Brown, like a JD Bertrand, you now have an advocate in Al Golden to his buddies in the NFL. So not only do you address immediate needs and get some experience with a former head coach as your defensive coordinator, but you also give extra options to players to get to the NFL through the channels of information with Al Golden.
All right, we're going to really break down Ohio State momentarily, but I wanted to focus a little bit on the Irish. And the big question mark coming in is who indeed would take the reins as starting quarterback. It's proven to be Tyler Buckner. And what we saw of Tyler last year, run first, he can throw it if he has to. How does he go from run first to he can do both, and he can do both well?
Pre-snap reads. And good thing is I talked to him this spring, and that's exactly what he was working on. The fact that Tyler Buckner, in just his second year at Notre Dame, won the starting position should not go unnoticed. He's got a cannon for an arm. I love the risks that he takes in games. It gets a little dicey sometimes. You got to force your receivers to make plays, but that also opens up the entire field. And then his ability to extend the play with his legs, that's going to be tremendous, especially opening weekend against Ohio State. So I love that Tyler Buckner is going to be there, getting the chance to talk to him, a fantastic young man. Remember, was not able to play in the spring game, Vic, because he slipped on some stairs while talking to a professor after class. So this is a guy who knows details, loves it, and wants to succeed, and I'm thrilled that Tyler Buckner is a starting quarterback.
So he was talking to a professor. See what happens when school gets in the way of football? See, injuries happen.
That's what the SEC is saying, right?
Exactly. Hey, so all right, so offensively, as Buckner goes, the offense will go, and he's going to have some help, obviously, in the run game. Defensively, I've asked you about this Notre Dame team, and you always reference the defense as one solid unit.
You couldn't be more solid. I'm surprised Isaiah Foskey stayed at Notre Dame. He would have been an NFL top 3-round pick 100%. And I know a lot of guys now they want to come back for that to get into that first round. But the way the CBA is structured in the NFL, you really don't want to be a first-round pick because it prevents you from getting to money earlier. Throw that out the window. Isaiah Foskey's here to win a national championship, Vic, and he can lead these guys to do it. Everybody wants to talk about C.J. Stroud, and I know we'll talk about Ohio State in a little bit. I don't care what quarterback you have. If Isaiah Foskey is hitting that quarterback early and often in games, it doesn't matter who you're playing. He alone can affect the entire defense. And then you get Bo Bauer, J.D. Bertrand, Junior Holly Alamaka. Get this name right because he is a linebacker who I was most impressed with watching practice in the spring. This is a dominant defense. Yes, you lost Kyle Hamilton, but you got DJ Brown and other players who have experience. That's the big key. Notre Dame has given experience to their younger players over the years, and that's going to pay off in a big way this year.
All right, before we break down the Buckeyes and what a formidable opponent for week one, let's take a look at what makes us all, Notre Dame fans, what makes us Irish. For the Irish, the hype video you've all been waiting for.
What makes us Irish? It's not about where we come from. It's not our nationality, race, or creed. And it's not just who we root for. It's who we are. What makes us Irish is our drive to be part of something greater than ourselves. Whether we donned the blue and gold and battled for Our Lady, or we grew up admiring the tradition from afar, we share one common bond. No matter where we come from or the journey we've taken to get here, we are all Irish. And this season is for the Irish.
All right, first game of the 2022 season, you go down to the Horseshoe. You go to Ohio State. You face that team, their fan base, that defense. What's it going to take to poke holes in that Ohio State defense, Ryan Harris?
It's going to take focus and tenacity. What does that mean? Focus one on the only thing that matters. That is a crazy environment. I got to call a game there a couple of years at Columbus. That stadium is nuts. It's going to be crazy. So find the voices that matter, right? If you're on offense, that's Tyler Buckner. If you're on defense, that may be DJ Brown or others, J.D. Bertrand. Know the voices and hear what you have to hear to be successful. And at some point, something's going to happen. So you have to have belief and do everything with tenacity. The biggest key in big games, Vic, play fast because it happens so fast. The talent's so much better than you faced in practice. Just play fast. Let the mistakes fix themselves the next day. You focus. You bring tenacity through playing fast. You will be successful in Columbus and everywhere the Irish play this year.
At some point, Ryan, Tyler Buckner is going to have to take the ball and throw the ball and take the top off that defense. Avery Davis, just a horrible, devastating news with another injury of his, the knee injury. He's out. Who are going to be the main targets this year for Tyler Buckner? Who's he going to throw it to?
Well, let me introduce you to Lorenzo Styles. I mean, he was fantastic in the Fiesta Bowl. I personally believe this is the best receiver Notre Dame has had since Golden Tate. He's tremendous. He has size. He has speed. And then you're getting Braden Lenzy back as well. So Braden Lenzy on his 5th year as a receiver has really opened eyes. He was one of the players actually that coaches and players in the spring game said had really improved in the offseason. That was back then. I wonder what he's been working on now. Took a slant at practice for a touchdown in training camp as well recently. So you've got some experienced guys who can really be explosive. And then, of course, you got Michael Mayer, whose entire season last year set records for in the history of tight ends at Notre Dame at yards, receptions, and touchdowns. So you have some all-time greats around you to help you out.
How did he not win the Mackey Award, by the way? How's that possible?
You know, you either love Notre Dame or hate Notre Dame, Vic, and a lot of people weren't good enough to either go to Notre Dame or play football there, so they take it out on you from time to time. Michael may have been a victim of that.
Well, the irony of this game is that Marcus Freeman is a former Ohio State linebacker. He played on that defense back in the day, and you know he's going to want to go back there and beat his former team. Let's hear from the head coach of your Fighting Irish.
Obviously, we're extremely excited. Finally, we're in game week. The opportunity to go and play a great team like Ohio State and in I'm sure to be a hostile environment in Columbus, Ohio. Again, I said this before, but any competitor wants this. You want an opportunity to go and play against the best and see. There's no better way to see where we're at as a football team than to go and say, okay, let's go play one of the best teams in the country and let's see where we're at. And so,
all right, you know, one of the best teams in the country for sure. When you're talking national championship this year, Ohio State is always going to be in the mix. They're loaded, but you never know. And I look at this first game of the season. If you remember last year, it was early in the season. Oregon went to the Horseshoe and knocked off Ohio State. I think if you're going to play a highly ranked team, if you're going to surprise somebody, do it early, Ryan.
Absolutely. And I love what Coach says because you want this as a competitor. But there's a lot of guys in that locker room, young guys saying, oh, I'd rather just have people think we're great. And that's the way we can earn the national championship. No, the road is real. But the good thing here, people are sleeping on this, Vic. Ohio State's actually putting in a brand new defense, and it's a defense that Marcus Freeman and Tommy Rees have already seen. They've got Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State last year from the Fiesta Bowl, who now is the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Now, two things about this. They run a unique, weird defense called a 4-2-3 or 4-2-5, excuse me, meaning there's 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 safety that they try and blitz. Now, everybody remembers in the Fiesta Bowl how great that Jack Collinsworth was throwing the football, and you can run the football at a mighty clip against that type of defense. So not only do you have a new defense where players literally have not played in this defense in a game yet, but then you have the experience that Marcus Freeman and Tommy Rees have from their game last year. So this is going to be fantastic to see, especially early on. I think this defense is a weak link.
What makes you nervous about that Ohio State offense? I mean, again, loaded every year. CJ Stroud comes back. He loses a couple big playmaking receivers, but when they go, others just show up.
Yes, and get used to this name. I got it on my board here. Jackson Smith Njigba. And oh, by the way, they have Marvin Harrison Jr. for all of us NFL fans. So that's quite the wide receiving core. Now, CJ Stroud, this is going to be an audition for the Heisman Trophy for him week 1 as well. I mean, could you imagine? Is this the Tyler Buckner or CJ Stroud Heisman Trophy game? So you've got talent and experience at both receiver and quarterback. However, the offensive line has moved a couple positions, some players playing in new positions, and the tight end situation really hasn't figured it out totally beyond their starting tight end. So there's a lot to be concerned of with the big playability and the experience. And this is a group that's going to be able to is going to be vulnerable, especially early on that offensive line.
Yeah, bro, I say if you're going to play a top-notch team, get to them early in the season where they're perhaps unsettled, unsure, uncertain about a lot of things. This could be that game. Let us hear now from the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Ryan Day, his thoughts on preparing for Notre Dame.
You know, again, every year it's a different story, different journey. And, you know, that's a new defensive staff there. So, you know, they'll have different backgrounds that they're going to bring to the table, and all very, very good coaches. You know, I worked for Al Golden at Temple and know him and certainly have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And, you know, Marcus has obviously great history of being a defense coordinator. And so there's a lot of good minds in that room, and they'll be well coached and have a really good scheme.
All right, let's welcome in from the class of 2017, a proud Domer himself, and he has the privilege and opportunity this season to call football games for his alma mater. Jack Collinsworth here on Here Come the Irish. First of all, man, congratulations. What an honor, I'm sure you know it is, to call ND football.
Well, Vic, thank you. It's great to be with you always, and it really is. I mean, I remember we just drove up to go watch practice a couple of weeks ago and spent back-to-back days. And after that first day, it was about 11 o'clock at night. We had watched practice all day and gone through the meetings and went to dinner. And it's late night, and I'm sitting there at the hotel room. I was like, I got to go back to campus. I got to go back and just soak this in for a second, go hang out with Touchdown Jesus and spend a little time walking around the grotto. And can't remember ever being that grateful. I think I really understand the opportunity, but ultimately the responsibility that job comes with. And I'm just excited about it, to be honest with you.
I'm happy for you. You'll be calling the games with Jason Garrett this year. And before we get into the machinations of calling football games, let's rewind a little bit. Obviously, everybody knows your dad.
Yeah.
But why did you decide to go to Notre Dame? Take us back to your decision to go to South Bend.
Well, I had been doing broadcasting for a long time. I've been doing it since 8th grade. So really, as long as I can remember doing anything, I was doing broadcasting. And it started, I was a cameraman, and I would love running around our high school, our middle school, shooting videos. And I thought I wanted to be a cameraman for the rest of my life. And then I fell in love with editing and putting together videos. And so then I wanted to be a producer. And part of the class rotation, they made everybody go in front of the camera and host the live announcements. And I'm like, and I want nothing to do with that. Those are all my classmates, my friends, my teammates watching this show. I was like, forget that. But I was able to get the nerves out of myself in high school. And then transitioning into college, I knew I wanted to pursue it further. And Northwestern was an option that reminded me a lot of high school. But being at Notre Dame, my brother was there already, right? He was on the football team, and we'd been best friends forever. And he had been telling me all these great stories about being at the University of Notre Dame. And then had a conversation with Jack Swarbrick and heard all of the plans for building out the infrastructure of Fighting Irish Media and beyond. And so to be a part of something that was just beginning to grow and really go try to be the best in the country was intriguing to me, and ultimately covering Notre Dame football was as good as it got from my perspective.
Well, that's so cool to hear. And there are plenty of people, alumni, listening to this and watching this broadcast who, heck, they helped pour the concrete on that campus. They've been here a long time. I'll never forget, just to take you back, when I arrived at campus, 1988, I knocked on the door at the campus radio station, WVFI, and I said, hey, I want to do like sports talk. And at the time, they were just all music. And they're like, no, we just don't do that. I go, well, I want to start doing it. And so we started doing the sports talk show. And then from there, we started calling the games. And I'm not sure how long that went on after I left, but we started that, and it was such a great feeling to go to Notre Dame football games, even though nobody listened to us back then, Jack. Nobody. My roommates didn't listen. They were at the games, for crying out loud. How did you become involved then? Because later on, I was always so jealous of the students after me who had those production studios, who had the opportunity to be in front of a camera and all that. So how did you make that transition to doing Notre Dame football while you were in school?
Well, Vic, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that really was how the story went for us too. And started by, there was no opportunity to cover Notre Dame football, right? I mean, everybody wants to cover Notre Dame. So any upperclassmen or maybe employees of the university were doing all those jobs. So I would interview anybody that would let me talk to them, and I sort of fell in love with all the different facets of the campus, because I would talk to fencers and I would learn about fencing, and I would talk to swimmers. I would talk to, I'm telling you, anybody in boxers, you name it. But I started slowly just building who and what I wanted to be as a broadcaster, and the art of asking a good short question and then getting out of their way, right? And making them the star became something that was really fun. And then kind of had to get the sledgehammer out and go, I got to get into covering some football here. And that's when we did, it was called ND Live, which was entirely a student production. We had student producers. I edited the whole thing myself. We'd sit there in the wee hours of the night putting it together. But it was an opportunity to sit in the host chair and then to do the producing also, in terms of putting the show together, which was A, the only way to do it, and B, kind of the way I wanted to do it, because I was used to doing it that way in high school. But that was my opportunity to do Notre Dame. And I would use my brother, just straight street hustling him. can I get anybody to come up after practice so I can just have one interview? It would really make this show have a chance this week. And my brother was the greatest ever at just sending somebody my way. And before you know it, it was Jalen Smith or Zach Martin or Corey Robinson. So he started getting some big names and a little bit of attention, and the rest kind of took off from there.
That's outstanding. So you've been working obviously with the program on the periphery with NBC, sidelines, pregame, halftime, and all that. There's a big difference now doing play-by-play, because play-by-play is an art in itself, and you're following in the footsteps of one of the greats of all time.
I know.
What was that conversation like when somebody told you, hey, you want to call the games?
Well, I mean, it was a lengthy process, and I had been doing play-by-play even back to Notre Dame and baseball games, which is a bit of a different rhythm than calling football games, and calling basketball games. And then I got into calling the A-10 basketball tournament with NBC, called some baseball games at ESPN, and then we started calling football games in the studio just to go, hey, what would this look like, sound like, be like? And it's always been my favorite sport. It's always been the sport that I sort of have a deeper understanding for. I mean, I grew up in my dad's office, sitting behind him with the coach's clicker and just watching one play a million times and going, Dad, what are you seeing here? And what are you noticing here? How's this work? And then being around my brother when he was playing safety up there. And so I've always just been so interested in the game. And then when I got to sit in the play-by-play chair for a football game, I became immediately addicted. And then we had the chance to go to the USFL and understanding how many great players there were, that had these awesome college careers. And everybody's thinking they're going to be an NFL guy. A lot of them were drafted, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. How much talent there was in that in-between zone really changed the way that I look at the landscape of football. And it gave everybody an opportunity. Some guys a second chance, some guys their first chance to be a quarterback or a head coach or a play caller. For me, it gave me my first chance to step in there and be a play-by-play broadcaster as that main guy on a football broadcast and sit next to Coach Garrett and figuring all these things out. So I learned a ton of lessons through that. More than anything, let the game be the star. Get out of the way of the game, right? I mean, just let those moments breathe. Let the crowd talk, and just supplement it with information and fun stories where it's necessary. But ultimately, the game, the players, the coaches, they're the star. And I think that's the most fun way to go watch a game.
Well, I think you're going to be great. Last question before we let you go, Jack. That time will come. You're a former student. You love the team. You love our mother. How hard is it going to be objective during moments of excitement?
Well, you're going to get excited for all the big plays. Yeah. I think that's the bottom line, right? I mean, it's Marshall's going to force a fumble. Marshall's going to have a touchdown. There's going to be an interception. There's going to be something in every game. There's going to be Clemson fans watching those big games, BYU fans, right? I mean, I grew up with somebody who played football at BYU. So when you're in that booth, you are a broadcaster. And that is the bottom line, right? I mean, you are a broadcaster. You're telling the stories of the coaches and the players and everybody in between, and you get invested. I mean, I'm spending all week this week going through the Marshall guys and taking notes on all the Marshall guys and talking to them a little bit and watching their stories, some of the transfers, going back and watching them at UK or at Purdue or whatever the case may be. So as you get invested and spend time on those stories, you get excited for those big moments, and celebrating big moments is what makes broadcast fun to listen to. So nobody wants some homer one-way broadcast, and it's never going to be that. I'm just going to call the game how I call a football game.
Jack, we are immensely proud of you. Go get them, brother. We'll see you all season long. Can't wait to see you and hear you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you paving the way for all of us, man.
See you, buddy.
See you.
All right, Notre Dame fans, this is a chance for you to win some swag. The ever beautiful Here Come the Irish hoodie, only found here on the Here Come the Irish show. There it is. How do you win? Well, let me show you how. We're going to predict the game every week, and the upcoming opponent obviously has a lot to do with that. We'll pick the final score, whether or not Notre Dame wins or loses. Will Notre Dame cover the point spread in this game? And then for fun, how many total yards of offense will Notre Dame generate? That's usually the tiebreaker. If you can beat me and my pick, then you win the hoodie. All right, so let's go down the list here. We call it Vic's Picks, and we've got a bunch of people involved in it. And our first one out of the chute today, representing the Athletics Directors Circle from Sarasota, Florida. Welcome, Bob McQuillan. Bob, how are you, buddy?
Doing great, Vic. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So you're a Notre Dame parent. How many kids have gone through or are on through right now?
I've got one that's a junior, an economics major, and she is just loving Notre Dame right now. And she's going to be on her way to Columbus this week too.
Why did she choose Notre Dame?
I took her there when she was a sophomore in high school, and she toured the campus. I didn't say a word, which was pretty difficult. We got to the grotto. We said a prayer. And after we got up, I said, "What'd you pray for?" She goes, "No, you go first." I said, "I prayed you get into Notre Dame." She goes, "I prayed for the same thing." Ever since that day she walked on campus, you know, Vic, she had that feeling, and it was Notre Dame all the way since then.
That's fantastic. And she is going to the Ohio State game. Has she provided any intel for you? Can you scout the team for us?
I did a little scouting myself, and this whole point spread got me a little bit flustered, right? And I couldn't understand it. And I'm looking back at last year's Rose Bowl, and I'm like, what are the keys to this game? And I think, you know, if you have a game plan, maybe similar like Michigan or Utah did in the Rose Bowl, to me, it's time of possession. And that's what I thought was going to be really the determining factor. So can we run the football, not turn it over, make good mistakes, live to play another day or another down? And I think we've got a very, very similar type of game that we had, maybe Utah had. Yeah. And this game reminds me a little bit like the game back in October of '88 when we faced off with Miami, that infamous day, that 31-30 contest.
Yep, I was there that day. In fact, we called that for WVFI radio way back in the old day. All right, so tell us how it's going to work, Bob. How did the Irish win this game? What's the final score? Give us the numbers, offense and everything else.
Sure, I think they win it with time of possession and running the football. I think they're going to win this game. As you can see by that score, very, very much like the Miami game, Catholics versus the Convicts, and I'm picking Notre Dame to win it 31-30.
So you're taking the upset. You don't care about that point spread at all, even though it's approaching 20 points. It seems to get higher every day.
Yeah, 17 and a half now, right?
Let's hope you're right, my friend. Let's hope you are correct. Thank you very much for the pick. Appreciate it. Let's move on now. Representing the Soren Society, Carrie Hussein, class in 1995. Also happened to be, is that the correct pronunciation, by the way, Carrie?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Vic. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, too. You also happen to be Dan Devine's grandson. How cool is that? That's awesome, man.
I am.
So before we get your pick, tell us the history there with Coach Devine and how much learning you had the opportunity to learn from a guy like that, learning about Notre Dame football growing up.
It was amazing. I'm fortunate enough I'm his oldest grandson, so I'm the oldest child, his oldest daughter, Jennifer Devine. And so I actually happened to be around for part of his coaching career.
Wow.
As you know, he retired quite early. He was the same age as Paterno, and Bobby Bowden coached well into the 70s because of my grandmother's illness. He left Notre Dame when he was quite young. But anyway, so I actually got to spend time with him. He and I were very close. I consider him and my father my two male heroes. My favorite joke is there's a story that came out in the national press, Sports Illustrated, back in the 70s after Montana had left, maybe it's the early 80s, and he was winning Super Bowls with the 49ers. And they interviewed my grandfather and said, well, when did you know that Joe was special? So I always knew he was special, but there was a time that I looked out my kitchen window, and in the backyard, my grandson, Kerry, and Montana were playing that game where you throw the ball, you then catch it, you try to run and out-juke the guy. Montana was laying me out. I was 5 years old, and he would just lay me out. And he said Montana had one speed, and it was to win. And he wouldn't even let my 5-year-old grandson beat him in a game of, run and catch. So those kind of stories. I was at the infamous Harry Oliver, the day the wind stood still. The kick, my grandmother and I were in the stands when he hit that 51-yarder to Michigan in 1980. I was at the Ice Bowl game in Dallas.
That's
sang the fight song at the 76 Gator Bowl. Sitting on Santa's knee. In fact, we just changed the fight song to Sons and Daughters finally. I sang Sons and Daughters in 1976 at the Gator Bowl, thanks to the urging of my my 5 aunts, the Devine girls. So we've been singing Sons and Daughters in the Devine family for decades.
What a rich history there. All right, well, Kerry, let's get on with it here. This is going to be a tough matchup to open the season. Ohio State is a beast, especially in Columbus. Who do you like? How much? Give us the numbers.
I've been a fan and a visitor at at the Horseshoe, and that's not an easy place to play. I am like Bob. I think this spread is absolutely ridiculous, and I saw that Coach Freeman has taken offense to it, and they should. I think we're going to win the game. I think we're going to win 31-27. I think we're definitely going to cover the spread as we're going to win. I think Al Golden's going to show us the Notre Dame defense. I think we're going to shut down that high-powered offense of Ohio State. Now, great, they have 3 Heisman candidates, but I think we're gonna score a couple times on defense, and I think our boys are gonna bring it home for us. And it's gonna be a heck of a game, and I'm happy for Jack and all those other guys, but I can't wait to watch on ABC and hear Herb Street have to call an Irish victory.
Listen to you, Gary. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for the memories, and appreciate your pick, man. Let's see if you win.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vic. Thanks for having me. Go
All right,
Irish.
buddy. Take care. Let's move on now. Representing the congregation of Holy Cross, it's Father Ralph Haig. Father, how are you today?
Great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Are you on campus?
I am. I'm in the oldest and the most storied residence hall on campus, St. Edward's Hall.
Beautiful. Many memories about St. Edward's. Beat them in the semifinals of inter-hall football in 1991, but I don't want to talk about it. Don't worry about it.
Because I would love to talk about the championship we won just last year.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so, you know,
that's not in my history book, Father. Sorry about that. It's not my... Hey, so tell us, what is campus like? Can you feel the buzz already this week?
Oh, you can. Vic, you can feel the buzz. You know, we just came off the high of welcome week and first day of classes. And now we're moving into another high, that first football weekend. It's an away weekend, but there's a lot of people traveling. There's a lot of excitement going to be down there in Columbus, but also a lot of excitement here on campus for all the kids that are staying here. We got a lot of things planned. Every hall, I'm sure, is going to have a game watch. Morrissey Hall is going to have one on the South Quad. And let me tell you, we are excited.
Well, you should be. All right, Father, lay it on here. What do you like? Who do you like? How much?
You know, I don't know much, but what I do know is that Notre Dame is going to win. Their overconfidence is going to be their undoing, and Notre Dame is going to take advantage of that. We're going to pull out a win, and we're going to win 21-20, a nail biter. But you know what? The Irish will come out on top. Spread? What spread? Well, everyone keeps talking about the spread. I don't know about any spread. We're going to if there is one, we'll cover it. I'm sure of it. Just like I cover my bagels every morning with cream cheese. We'll take care of that. We'll deliver. And, you know, in terms of yards, come on. It's going to be 1,842 yards of offense for Notre Dame, and a great way to start off our new coach's football season. A great win.
1,824 yards of offense means it's going to be a 7-hour football game, but we look forward to it.
You know what? I'm all for it. I mean, hey, I'm in it for 18 hours. Sign me up.
Father, thanks for the enthusiasm. I hope you win.
Oh, we will.
All righty. Take care. Moving on now, representing the John Cardinal O'Hara Society, Class 13 MBA, Ian Galbraith joins us on Here Come the Irish. Ian, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Great. So 13, class of 13, who was the quarterback 2013? Take us back.
Vic, I don't remember the quarterback, but what I do remember is my last game as a student was the run over in the national championship game. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, who I met at the bookstore. And so I don't have great memories of facing off a team that can stretch the field with fast receivers and running the ball. And I think I'm the only one on the show that's got that picked a loss. You know, I'm excited for the season. I'm excited for Marcus to come in, but he has a huge game, a night game in the Horseshoe, and I think it's going to be tough. Ohio State's a great football team, and I hope I'm wrong, but you know, trying to be a realist, I think it's going to be a loss to start.
Well, you may not be the only one who goes in that direction. I'll review my picks a little bit later. Ian, tell us what the final score is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be close. It's going to be 30-24. I think about 400 yards of offense. They're going to be able to move the ball, but that defense is, although it's stout from the D line, all the way back to the secondary. I don't think they're going to be able to hang with the speed of the Ohio State wide receivers. So it's going to be close, but I think they're going to go down with a loss.
Well, if Notre Dame does indeed win this game, it's one of those shock the college football world, Notre Dame's for real type of wins. And that's what it would take to win this game. Ian, again, we're not too far off. You'll hear my pick later on. Thanks for yours. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Our final contestant in Vic's Picks from the Order of St. Thomas More Forever Fund, Jacqueline Pimentel Gannon out of Indianapolis. Man, a lot of different graduation. You graduated in 05, then in 07 you got another degree, and then in 11 you got your law degree from the. How long did you spend in? Would you spend 10 years at Notre Dame?
Yep, it was a full decade. I joke that it took me 10 years to finish at Notre Dame, and people normally assume that was for one degree. So
you just didn't want to leave, did you?
Who wants to leave Notre Dame?
What dorm?
Lewis Hall for undergrad, 4 years there, and then 3 years as an AR and PW.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, Jacqueline, you're not too far from campus being in Indy, so I'm not sure you've been following the team with all the changes in store. What do you think this week?
Absolutely. I think it'll be a tough game, but in fact, so I always like to be optimistic. I actually was thinking, though, maybe if I picked a loss, at least even if if I'm wrong, great, the Notre Dame still wins. But then if we did fall, I would at least have a little bit of something to ease the sting if I made a prediction. But I can't. It's the start of the new year, a start of the new Freeman regime. It's going to be great. I think we're going to win a close one. We're going to stop the run initially, which is going to enable us to stay close. And eventually, I think we win in a close one, 31-27. And it's funny. It's a comfort to me that all of the people picking were really close. I think I picked the same score as someone else, and another person had the same yardage as I. So just a little bit under last season's average. I think we'll maybe go down a bit in passing, but I think that we'll get Buckner with some good rushing yards that'll increase that.
Well, everything's similar except you're a little removed from Father Ralph's 1,800 yards
true.
of offense. That's the only difference I've noticed so far.
That's
Jacqueline,
right.
I trust your judgment. After 10 years at Notre Dame, you've soaked in the environment, so you do have a sense of understanding. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
Good luck.
a lot, Vic.
Okay, let's see what I've got in store for Vic's Picks, and I need to let you all know something. To pick against Notre Dame is very, very difficult. In fact, we've been doing this show for a few years now, and I think I've only done it one other time before. And if you pick against Notre Dame, and you're right, you don't take delight in that, right? You're not going to come back and say, "Oh, look, I told you so." That's stupid. If you pick against Notre Dame and you're wrong, well, you look like an idiot. And I'm pretty good at that, looking like an idiot. So for this game, unfortunately, playing there in Columbus, in that stadium, in front of that crowd, that is an enormous task. And I like Ohio State winning a close one, a very close game, 31-28. Obviously, the spread's not going to be hit. And I see a lot of offense, just over 400 yards, but maybe a turnover or two that would turn the tide in this type of game. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I look like an idiot the next time we see each other on this show. But for now, how about a little hype-up video leaning into week one?
It's something different about being in our home. Good? Let's go to work, man. Break it down, man. Let's go. Here we go, boys.
GGS on 2 on 2! GGS!
You can never look past anyone. Now, the point spread, when I first saw it, and it climbed, it was 15, 16, now 17 and a half. You think that's fair at this point?
Well, it's fair for Irish fans because I'll tell you what, these Irish are going to stun them, and look out for them on defense. And people think players know this number. Players have no idea. You want to go in and you want to win against Ohio State. So I think that's a fair number because it gives Notre Dame a great opportunity to not only bring home a W, but to make some fans happy at home as well.
All right, how do you see this game playing out? Let's just cut to the chase right now. I mean, a lot of people suspect plenty of offense. I had my Vic's pick. I think it's going to be a very close game, and I think turnovers will be the difference here. The team that takes care of the ball late will win this game.
I got 31-17 Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a close game through 3 quarters, and Ohio State will get frustrated with Notre Dame's defense, get a defensive turnover, perhaps for a direct touchdown, pick 6, scoop and score, or that leads to a preceding touchdown by Notre Dame to close out the game. So I got 31-17 Notre Dame.
Is this Ryan Harris, the Notre Dame fan talking, or are you legit that sure of this game?
I just, both, but
Yes.
I'll tell you, just analyzing the game, watching the film, and the experience of Marcus Freeman and Tommy Rees against that defense of Jim Knowles earlier this year at the Fiesta Bowl, they're going to have the knowledge of what's going to happen. So in terms of what the defense is going to do and how they're going to look at things. So they've been able to draw up some new plays with new players, and no one has seen a Notre Dame offense with a dual threat quarterback as dynamic as Tyler Buckner since I can remember.
Okay, before we say goodbye, you have watched and broadcast games from some of the greatest venues in college football. The shoe is going to be insane. How can you compare this place, what it's going to look like Saturday night, to other venues that you broadcast from?
Well, think about it if you were at the Notre Dame Clemson game during COVID, or if you were at the Notre Dame Georgia game, either in Georgia or at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
This is an all-day event, Vic. People are going to be out at 11 in the morning screaming at each other, screaming, that they're on the same team, that they're on opposing teams. But both programs really are going to benefit from these 2 games coming up the next couple of years. It's an amazing opportunity. And as players, if you want to win a championship, you have to beat a Notre Dame or an Ohio State. So you might as well get it out of the way early. And only Notre Dame, Vic, can beat the potential Big Ten champion, ACC champion, and Pac-12 champion in the regular season. This is what makes it special going to Notre Dame.
That is the benefit of being an independent in this age. All right, let me promote a couple events that are coming up here through the school. On September 7th, a live chat that you can watch between Vice President for University Relations, Lou Nani, and former pro football player Rocky Blyer, former Steeler. You can stream this chat on ND Loyal's YouTube channel or by going to the giving.ndu.edu/watch. That's giving.nd.edu/watch. That's available. Then an exciting and upbeat party in the concourse in Notre Dame Stadium, the Friday Night Bash, featuring food trucks, drinks, live music. 2 Friday Night Bashes, one on September 9th before the Marshall game, one on September 16th before the Cal game. Tickets are $12. Children 11 and under enter for free. And don't forget the Notre Dame Music Festival, September 21st, featuring performances from several groups, including the Notre Dame Orchestra, Voices of Faith. That is coming up on September 21st. Ryan, best of luck to you in the shoe. Stay safe. Looking forward to another great season here on Here Come the Irish.
Can't wait. Go Irish.
All right, buddy. On to the marching band, please.